Everybody, let me introduce you to Dan Strode, who is Group Director of Culture and Strategy and Global Human Resources at Banco Santander. Sorry if I spell it wrong. And Dan would be speaking about the culture advantage. Is it right?
Absolutely. And that was perfect, Ross.
Okay, thank you. We have already gave you a host, right? So you should now be able to share your screen.
Okay, perfect. Wonderful. So something a little bit different now. Thank you to Stefan. I've learned a lot in the last minutes through this presentation. And now we're going to do something slightly different, which is look at the culture within a company that is needed in order to be successful in Web3. Because actually, when we think about digital transformation, it is not only about using digital technology and tools. It's absolutely about using digital technology and tools and having a good culture within the company so that you can thrive. And this is what I'm going to explain. So first, let me start with bad news. The bad news is that we are living in this fourth industrial revolution. You know, customers around the world are now living more and more online. They've become much more digital than ever before. And with this, their expectations are also shifting. So we're seeing customers want products and services that are very, very simple for them. They're hyper-personalized to their needs and their requirements, and companies interact with them in a very transparent way. And of course, Web3 and blockchain technology can really help with some of those questions around transparency, around personal ownership, around access and democratization. So there's good things happening, but it's a very complex landscape that we're working in. We're working in a world where there's multiple new technologies coming on stream at once. It's not only blockchain, it's blockchain plus artificial intelligence. It's blockchain plus artificial intelligence plus cloud computing plus 5G and plus robotics. Lots and lots of things happening at the same time. So I always like to say the pace of change in the world has never been so fast as it is today. But in the future, it will never be so slow. Things are only going to accelerate more and more. Web3 will be replaced by Web4, which will be replaced by Web5. And these cycles around products and offering NFTs, DeFi, and so on will be changing at exponential rates. So how can you keep up with that as a company? If you look at the banking sphere, of course, DeFi is changing the way we do things. Blockchain technology is changing the way we do things. Much lower cost, much more efficient, much more transparent, resilient, and safe. So very good opportunities there. But it also means that things are changing in the market. Big technology players are trying to come in. Of course, centralized players are trying to do activities in decentralized ways. We know that we're seeing new banks starting up, new entrants into the market, and they all attack the various business lines of existing companies. And this is quite scary because we're seeing human lifespan increasing. Every year, new science happens, new medicines happen, and you can see here in the blue line, humans now live on average more than 70 years. But the red line is the concerning one because company lifespan is rapidly decreasing. And if you take the S&P 500, so the top 500 companies worldwide on the American stock market, their average lifespan has gone from just over 50 years to less than 20 since the 1960s. And this means if we extrapolate 5 years in the future, so 2027, 75% of that index will no longer be in that index. They will have either gone out of business or be something completely different and much smaller. So if you name the top 10 companies that come to your mind, imagine a world in 5 years' time where 7 or 8 of them are no longer in business. Well, that can happen and has happened to companies like Nokia, to Kodak, to Blockbuster. We're seeing it happen to some of the centralized exchanges. We're seeing it happen all across the board. DeFi, NFTs, metaverse is changing the way we do business. And it's upon us in our culture of our companies to change the way we do business. The good news is, I know that there are innovative companies doing common cultural things. So I've spent the last 3 or 4 years really studying companies. And I published at the end of last year a book that you can find on Amazon called The Culture Advantage. Please have a look at this, because inside it has 8 keys to success. And I'm going to share 2 of them with you today. And actually, because you're a Web3 native audience, you'll see here the Chromie squiggle. And I'd like to tell you that Eric Calderon has an interview in the book. We also have interviews and information around popular artists like Beeple, like the VFriends project. So it's really up to date with cutting edge technology, this book. And it's interesting because whether you're the Walt Disney Company or your art blocks, they both have very similar cultures. And like I say, 2 things I want to share with you today. The first is companies who have a growth mindset, and I'm going to explain what that means, are winning. And the second thing is companies that embrace technology are also winning. So let me tell you the first thing. Growth mindset is very, very important in this marketplace. Now, there's a professor in the US called Dr. Carol Dweck. She wrote a book called Mindset, and she basically said there's 2 types of people. There's people who have a growth mindset, and these are people that like challenges, view them as opportunities to get better, to try new things. They want to take risks. They want to learn about new technologies and constantly are pushing the boundaries. And then there's people who have a fixed mindset. These are people who stay away from new things. They don't like feedback or criticism. They don't want to take risks. They spend most of their time protecting their own back and blaming other people. And they think that they can't learn new things. And we see that in the crypto industry and the Web3 industry very keenly. We see certain people, those early adopters with the growth mindset, getting involved, trying new things, probably falling victim to scams and rugs and all sorts of different things going on. But they learn as they go along and they get better and they get better, and they have that growth mindset. And then we see the fixed mindset people as well who don't want to try new things. They stay away from crypto. They think it's a terrible product and they don't get involved and they don't take the time to learn about the blockchain and the good things within it. The question is, and the good news is, a growth mindset can be taught both to an individual, to a team, and to a company as a whole. How do you teach a growth mindset, and what do you need? Well, you need psychological safety. So if you think about the companies that you work in or the companies that you've started, and you ask yourself the question, is the environment safe for people to contribute? That is psychological safety. Okay, and that's the key ingredient you need to let people grow and have that growth mindset. When you have environments that are safe, people want to be themselves. They want to participate. They're happy to take risks, and they are more innovative. So you can see why this is super, super important when you think about Web3. It's critical because you need people innovating. You need people learning from one another. You need people collaborating. When you don't have an environment where safety is present, then people are scared of failure, they don't speak up, they don't take risks, and they blame everyone else. And of course, that is not conducive to the pace of change we're seeing in Web3. The question is, what can you do to make psychological safety in your company? Well, let me point out 3 important things. You can remove ambiguity, mismatches, and threats. So make it very clear to your teams what you expect of them. For example, I want you to create a new NFT project and launch it and build a Discord. And if it fails, no problem, because we'll have learned. Make it very clear what you want people to do. If you have ambiguity, they typically don't take risks and don't set up Discords and don't try new projects and so on and so forth. Also, have courageous conversations. And I don't mean tell people that you ate a pizza last night. I mean, talk about your family, talk about your relationships, talk about what's bothering you, what you're really doing on the weekend, what's causing you anger and stress. Get to know people on a deep level. And then the other thing I want to highlight is try to create an environment where the team give you the answers. Don't rush to give everyone advice. As a founder of a company or a leader of a company, many people are very quick to want to give advice. Try to avoid that at all costs. Let people speak up and come up with ideas themselves to solve the problems that they have. Now, the interesting thing is, I have a TV recommendation for you. I don't know who has watched New Amsterdam Hospital. It's one of my favorite series on Netflix, and I want you to do some homework today and watch the first episode. The problem is, if you watch the first episode, I'm going to ruin your weekend and you're going to end up watching 5 series and binging on New Amsterdam Hospital. Anyway, in the first episode, you see this doctor, Dr. Max Goodwin, take over at New Amsterdam Hospital, which is a public hospital in the United States. And the truth is, he's young, inexperienced, and probably underqualified for the job, but he's building a great culture. And on day one, he gathers all of the staff into the auditorium. He gets everyone in there, they're all sitting down, and he starts by saying that his sister was born and died in the hospital. So he has a personal relationship with the hospital, and he explains that. The second thing he does is he sacks all of the cardiac department. He says, you guys have been charging patients and billing them, trying to make money out of them, and that's not the purpose of the hospital. The purpose of the hospital is to give great quality care and treat the patients the way they need to be treated. So he fires them. And the third thing he does is he says, how can I help? He asks people what he can do to help. People put the hand up and they say, I want to remove the emergency waiting room. And he says, where do you want to move it to? And the person says, no, I want to take it away completely. And he says, okay, let's try it. He adds healthy food to the canteens. He does what the people suggest. He lets people try new things and come up with ideas. Why is this important? Why am I telling you this? Well, it's because he has done the things that create psychological safety. When he fires the cardiac department, he's removing ambiguity, mismatches, and threats. He says, you are here to serve patients, not to make money. Very clear purpose. You are here to build a new NFT project, nothing else. And we're going to try. He has a courageous conversation. He talks about his sister being born and dying in the hospital. You can't get more courageous or personal than that. And he doesn't rush to give advice. He lets the people come up with solutions themselves. So that, to me, is a fantastic case study in psychological safety. Do watch the first episode and then get addicted to the series. The second story I want to share with you is around SpaceX and Boeing. 2 stories you probably know very well, both aviation related. And the question is, we can choose what kind of company and environment we want to have when it comes to new things. I was watching in February 2020, 2021 even, the SpaceX website, the Falcon 9 rocket going up to the space and trying to land. And it was one of the first tests. And the chief engineer was doing the voiceover. So you're watching a live stream of the rocket going up, and he's explaining to you the rocket's going up and so on and so forth. And as it's coming down to land, and by the way, SpaceX is a private company, but these rockets I've estimated to be about $45 to $65 million to build. The rocket's coming down to land and it blows up before it lands. So that's $65 million gone up in smoke. And I rubbed my hands and I said, this is going to be good. I expected the chief engineer to be upset and to start swearing on the live stream. What actually happened was something different. He was super calm, super positive, and his exact words were, well, ladies and gentlemen, obviously the landing didn't go as planned, but we have a lot of good data. We're going to learn from this and get better next time. And the moral of the story is this is an organization that wanted to learn, wanted people to speak up, wanted people to try new things and take risks. And surprise, surprise, a month later, SpaceX had fixed it and they shot the Falcon 9 rocket into sky. It landed successfully. And now they put more tonnage into space in 3 months than the whole of their competition does in a year. So SpaceX is winning. Compare and contrast that to the culture within Boeing. And you all know the 2 fatal 737 MAX crashes that happened. Now, you can tell I'm a geek about culture and innovation, and I read the United States congressional report on these 2 accidents, a report of 100-odd pages, 150 pages of what happened in those fatal crashes and why did they happen. And they cited the culture of Boeing as the #1 cause no less than 60 times in that paper. They said there was no psychological safety within the company. People and engineers knew that these planes had a design flaw and they were likely to crash with fatal consequences. And when people tried to speak up, they were shut down and couldn't speak up and escalate issues. So you can see two different mindsets when it comes to trying new things, learning new things, and being able to speak up. And we have to choose what type of company we want. Those in Web3 who are nimble and fast will gain the advantage by trying new things. And a very good case study is Adidas. You know, Adidas has done this project with Wagme United. It's also done the Firebrand tracksuit that you see here and the beanie hat with G-Money and Bored Ape and so on and so forth. It's not been perfect. Neither of these projects has been perfect. Neither of these projects have been without hitches and glitches, but they have learned and they've got better as they've gone along. They've been willing to put their name on the line, take a risk in the effort of doing something new. And I commend them for that. And I love them for that. They're learning as they go along. Nothing will be perfect, but they're moving fast and they're being brave. That from a legacy company like Adidas is very, very impressive. Of course, if you're a startup, you may have that mentality already. And if you're a legacy company, you need to build that mentality. So congratulations to Adidas for learning as they go along, being an example, just like SpaceX was for aviation and rockets into space. The second principle I wanted to share with you, because you are in the technology field by being in Web3, is not to be scared of technology. And you may be laughing at this point, but it's very, very important. When Web 1.0 came out, i.e. the internet, people were scared. I don't know if you remember that point, but basically people thought the internet would take away all of the jobs. Well, McKinsey did a study 10 years later, and they proved that global domestic product increased worldwide by 10% thanks to the internet. We got richer thanks to the internet. They also found that for every one job that was destroyed, 2.6 new jobs were created. So the point is, we're now living in Web3. We're now living with the blockchain. We're now living with cryptocurrencies. We're now living with digital assets and NFTs. And the point is, this pace of change is here to stay and getting faster and faster, and we need to embrace it, not be scared of it. And there's great examples of what's happening out there. Starbucks, a drink company with an NFT token, Nike with the swoosh.swoosh websites, Puma doing partnerships with 10 KTF and Beeple and the team. And the Fly Fish Club, a restaurant with NFT token gated access. All of these are companies, traditional companies, getting involved and dipping their finger and their foot into the water to try new things, to try new technology and see how it works. And the same as with Adidas. Nothing goes smoothly. No one does everything perfectly, but they all learn. And over time, this is going to grow and grow and grow. And those who have the first mover advantage and have been brave enough to try something are going to be the ones that win. So very, very important. You know, this happened to the banking industry as well. Who's used one of these? An ATM. I'm sure you've all used an ATM, not necessarily this one, but one from another bank. I'm certain of it. The same thing happened in the 1960s. People were scared of the new technology. They said that the branches would close, there'd be no one there serving, all the jobs would go, but the opposite actually happened. People embraced technology and, surprise, surprise, the number of branches increased more than the population increased by a factor of 3. It was very powerful because the cost to serve the customer had come down because this new technology was implemented and people could do added value activities. So as we see now with artificial intelligence and ChatGPT and so on and so forth, all of these tools at our disposal are there to help us, not hinder us if we have this mentality. And, you know, that was the banks being very proactive, but you can be reactive when it comes to technology as well, as is the case with Lin Quinjan, which is a Chinese cosmetics company. Okay. COVID came along and they lost 99% of their revenue overnight. And they had a choice. They had the choice to fold and die and go away or to try something new. And they did what I call digitalize their value. What they did was they used their store employees to become social media influencers. And they sold via the social media app more units of cosmetics in 2-hour shopping sprees than the entire stores did in a month. They digitalized their value. The people became brand ambassadors, social media influencers. They explained how to take on and put off the makeup, the different colors, and so on and so forth. And it was a roaring success. They digitalized their value. And this is what we should be thinking as companies. Because, of course, to change is risky, but not to change, that is more risky. We have an opportunity with Web3 now to change our companies and our structures, to try new things. And if we don't, maybe we're going to be like Nokia, Blockbuster, and Kodak. Maybe we're going to be one of those 75% of companies in 5 years' time from the S&P 500 that go out of business. So it's very important to fight against that and battle against that. Because if you don't, and this is my call to action, it will be too late. You need to have psychological safety. You need to have that growth mindset. You need to embrace technology and do the other 6 things in my book, The Cultural Advantage, because if you don't, you find yourself on a burning platform. And when you're on a burning platform, it's far too late. You only have 2 options. The first is you stand there and you're engulfed by the flames. The second is probably a worse option. You jump into the icy cold water down below. And if you're really unlucky, you get eaten by a shark, but neither is a good solution. So thank you for listening to me. Please do connect with me on LinkedIn. Please do buy the book. And I would like to let you know I have a Web3 company called Roster, based in the United Kingdom, that does education for companies, not only about the blockchain technology, but also about how to do cultural transformation and change and embrace and enhance your strategy. So please feel free to reach out to me and we continue the conversation. Thank you so much for listening, and I wish you a good rest of the conference.